Now, many of you will have seen Sir Keir Starmer accepting the vote that he won on Saturday, something like 50-odd% of the Labour Party vote. Not as many people who voted for some other Labour leaders, of course, have voted for him, but Lisa Nandy, who's now the Shadow Foreign Secretary, came in third, and, of course, Rebecca Long-Bailey came in second. There's going to be all sorts of changes being made to Labour Party policy. We don't yet know what they are, but let's talk to Dr. Rakib Ehsan and find out what he makes of it all. Rakib, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thanks very much for joining us. It's not that clear, really, yet what Sir Keir Starmer is going to do and what direction he's going to take the party in, is there?
Well, there's not much indication at the moment, but what I'm more concerned about whether or not Sir Keir Starmer is the right man to win a lot of those working class votes that Labour have lost to the Conservative Party in Northern England, parts of the Midlands, and in working class parts of Wales.
Well,
I'm not convinced.
Given that he was the architect of their rather bizarre Brexit strategy during the last election campaign, which was basically to say that, in areas where people voted to leave, we agree with you, and in areas where you voted to remain, we agree with you as well.
Well, I think he was one of the chief architects of what I thought was a disastrous policy on Brexit. I think Labour's Brexit fudging was electorally disastrous. And you have to see that with Sir Keir Starmer, he represents a constituency, Holborn and St Pancras, who voted 73.3% Remain. So on top of that, his role in formulating that second referendum policy, his strong legal background as well. So I'm not entirely convinced that if one of the main objectives that the Labour Party has is to win back those traditional Brexit-facing voters, I'm not sure he's the man to spearhead those efforts.
No, exactly right. And what have you detected so far about him in terms of who he's appointed to which jobs?
Well, I think that one thing I would say, what is a welcome development, is that the shadow cabinet has a more competent feel to it. Not that there was, you couldn't get much worse than some of the appointments that were in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet. But what I would say is the main issue that I would have with the shadow cabinet is it the kind of shadow cabinet that will inspire people. I'm not entirely convinced that it has the charismatic figures which are required to challenge the current government.
Mind you, if you were looking for charismatic figures, I'm not sure you'd find that many in the cabinet either, would you?
No.
Given some of the names they seem to be calling one another behind the scenes, according to Tim Shipman in the Sunday Times this weekend, some of which I can't mention on the radio, I think it's all looking a little bit kind of charisma-less without Boris Johnson.
Well, I agree. I think that much of the charisma that does come in from the current government comes from the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
What I would say is that a positive development for the Labour Party is that it's a significant improvement to what it had previously in terms of the shadow cabinet. But as I say, with Sir Keir Starmer, is he the man to spearhead the sort of efforts that Labour need in terms of really winning back voters that it has lost over Brexit? I'm not entirely convinced, Mike.
Well, I'm struggling to look at Keir Starmer and see what his conviction politics are. I don't really know what he believes in. The only thing I know pretty much for sure is that he likes the European Union and wishes we'd never left it.
Well, I think a great number of people have that impression. And I think that's going to be hugely problematic. If you're talking about winning back seats, we're in sort of former coal mining areas, the sort of steel heartlands that Labour used to hold, but, with its crumbling former red wall. Is he the man to win back those voters? Someone who played such an important role in Labour's disastrous second referendum policy. Someone who is, I would call him an EU enthusiast.
Yeah.
Is he well positioned to win back those voters? I have to say that he's got cut out for him.
No, also he's inherited what can only be described as a bit of a poison chalice, because I saw from your Twitter account this weekend, you said this: when Jeremy Corbyn was first elected as leader of the party, he promised a kinder, gentler politics, one based on humanity, care and compassion. How's that worked out for him?
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say it didn't work out very well. Does the average Brit think that Labour is now a kinder, more caring organisation following Corbyn's leadership? I suspect not. people who are supportive of Jeremy Corbyn, they think that the last 4.5 years, he's cultivated this wonderful, social movement, they call it. But the reality of the matter is Labour is a party which has a rich anti-discrimination tradition. Now it finds itself under investigation by the Equality and Human Rights Commission, a body that it created itself, for allegations of institutionalised anti-Semitism.
Yes.
The only other party that has been investigated by that body over these kind of allegations is the British National Party.
Yes, which is a pretty nasty company to have to be keeping. But the trouble is, right, there are people who took control of the Labour Party, Momentum, I'm thinking of considerably here.
Yeah.
Where have they gone? Are they still there? They seem to be basically making statements which would suggest that they're not going away, and they're going to try to kind of steer Keir Starmer in some way to stay the path, if you like, that Jeremy Corbyn set them on.
Well, the reality of the matter is these elements have not gone away from the party. They might not hold as much control and influence as they did before, but the reality of the matter is that they're still there. Now, Sir Keir Starmer's problem is that if he tries to firmly push back on those pro-Corbyn momentum-like elements within the party, he's going to find himself under vicious attack. Now, as you can see, in previous years, that would range from being called a sellout, a closet Tory, a Zionist shill, a traitor, and people are going to see that, and that is not what you want when you're leading a party, to come under vicious attack from elements within the very political party that you lead.
No, exactly right. So, I mean, the future for the Labour Party is not particularly bright, it seems to me. There are those optimists on the left who say, but Keir Starmer is very much like a sort of Tony Blair figure. He'll be able to rally the troops. He'll be able to bring the party back more to the centre. I think it might be a bit too late for that.
Not only that, I don't think that sort of that centrist politics, I don't know how successful it can be in the current political environment. The reality of the matter is he's leading a battered party, which is now polling below 30%.
Yeah.
One which is 163 seats behind the ruling Conservative Party, which is actually consistently now polling above 50% in the middle of a national health crisis.
Yeah.
So he's got his work cut out. The thing with the Conservative Party, there's always that, that criticism from the left. This is a nasty party. They don't care about the poorest, the most economically disadvantaged. In the last election, the Conservatives won more working class votes than the Labour Party. Talking about voters who fall within that C2, CD social grade. In terms of how they've responded to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen the introduction of a comprehensive wage aid regime. So it's very clear that even before the new coronavirus outbreak, the Tories were moving to the left economically. So these sorts of allegations of the nasty party and all the rest of it's not as potent as before. But when you're talking about Blairism, that sort of, that centrist, middle-of-the-road politics, I'm not sure that that's going to inspire people that Labour have previously lost. That's not going to inspire them to return back to the party. I'm sceptical of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. So as far as his first kind of 2 days goes, I know it's probably a little bit unfair to judge him on it. What's your scores out of 10 for him?
I think he's made. I think he's been positive in the sense that he's clearly made clear, I want to root out anti-Semitism from the Labour Party. He's tried to engage with sections of the Jewish community to apologise for Labour's fundamental mismanagement of anti-Semitism concerns within the party. And I think that is important for a party which does have the rich anti-discrimination tradition that I previously mentioned. As I said, with the shadow cabinet appointments, to be honest, I think most people say it's a welcome development that Richard Bergen is no longer in the shadow cabinet.
Well, they've kept John. I think John Ashworth's the only survivor, isn't he?
Yeah. So, and I think John Ashworth, he's come across as fairly competent. He's tried to adopt a more constructive role, following the new, considering the circumstances we find ourselves under with coronavirus.
Well, it wouldn't have made much sense to replace him because he's the guy that's been in the hot seat, so you might as well keep him, I suppose, for the moment.
Absolutely. He's been in the hot seat, Mike, and I think he's performed fairly well. I think the one problem with the previous shadow cabinet, when we had the likes of Diane Abbott, Richard Bergen, there's a fundamental, competence deficit. So I think that the one welcome development is that there are individuals there who can at least come across as competent and steady. That wasn't the case previously. Would it be the kind of shadow cabinet that can inspire people to say, this could be potentially a government in waiting? That takes a lot of time. To be truth be told, he's only become, leader a couple of days ago.
Well, they've got a few years to go at it, haven't they? I mean, we're not going to see an election at this moment in time for another 4 years minimum.
Absolutely.
So we shall see. Well, listen, Rakib, thanks. You keep well. Talk to you again soon. Dr. Rakib Ehsan from the Henry Jackson Society giving us his verdict so far on Keir Starmer. The thing is about Sir Keir Starmer, there's so many Labour lefties now who are so far to the left of what the Labour Party used to be when Tony Blair ran it, when it was actually a success electorally, that they can't probably handle moving back anywhere near the centre. But if you're from the Labour Party movement and you voted for Sir Keir Starmer and you can tell me what it is that he's going to be brilliant at, then by all means let me know.